We have some that total horn are about 120 inches, tip to tip, break 100. So definitely,
Wow.
when you're around them, it's your spatial awareness needs to be a little heightened
It's
because
shocking.
they'll swing their head and make sure you know that they're there. They'll definitely hit you from time to time, but it's, I guess the way to phrase it is you got to think that they're all a bunch of little toddlers out there and they're just playing games. So,
Hi, I am Maelia Davis, and I'm here with 713 Live. Today I have Peyton Huber with me. He is the quintessential Houston guy, I think. It's really a great story. We all have a perception of Houston. Peyton grew up here in Houston, and he has a very cool life. He's in Cypress most during the week, and then on the weekends his family has a ranch where they raise Longhorns, like those actual huge animals that the University of Texas likes to promote. So have lots of questions for you, but the first one is, you really have seen a lot of growth from when you were a little kid to what Cypress is now. How would you describe like what you remember Cypress and Houston being like as a little kid versus now?
right. I guess one of the ways to phrase it is Houston kind of seemed like its own, like, hey, we're going to take a trip to Houston. Now it feels like it's kind of reached its way out here. So even going back to, hey, we got to go in the grocery store and it's 20 minutes away, and now you don't have to leave, as people refer to Cypress as the bubble. You have your shopping, you have your medical, you have your groceries, everything now. So, I mean, it really has, I guess the way to phrase it would be the milestones that it's hit, such as, I mean, you remember whenever they added the outlet mall and everyone thought that that was the craziest thing to have a mall out in this little section of Cypress. And especially even going to adding the Grand Parkway, which I feel like has been the major catalyst to Houston just expanding outward, giving a lot more accessibility on the roadways, but then continuing that, hey, we filled in everything in the Grand Parkway now we're filling outside of it, as you've seen with Bridgeland, a lot of development up north in Magnolia, Hempstead area, things like that. So it's kind of shocking to see what it was to what it is now, even in the past 20 years. But really, I mean, as we've even talked about, now we're in a small area that has 13 high schools with thousands of kids. That's considered a major city in a lot of places.
That's a great point. So Peyton went to a high school called Cy Ranch, which was the newest high school when you attended, and 4,000 students walking the hallways, right, of this high school.
It's a sardine can walking between classes, no doubt.
Yeah, and since then there's three more high schools built, two or three more.
I mean, for sure, Cy Park and Bridgeland were added after. So, I mean, they're still continuing to add. They have plans for more. And like I said, we're at 13 now. So it's, Cy Fair's gotten continuously growing, but I guess for right reason. And it's at least good in our market to show that housing follows the school trends and populations. So, I mean, if we're sitting here and at 13 high schools and continuing to expand, it doesn't seem that the housing is going to be slowing down from that anytime soon.
Now, one of the things that you mentioned was, you mentioned some cities, and a lot of people don't know these cities. So Katy, Cypress, Magnolia, each of these cities in Houston are like a city in the United States. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to explain. Like, people will call us and go, "Oh, I'm moving to Houston. Can you help me find a house?" And it's like, Houston's massive. Like, it takes 3 hours to get from one side to the other. So a lot like Los Angeles. Los Angeles is the same way. Like, they'll have, Brentwood, or they'll have Santa Monica, and those little cities are cities within the city of Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. But Santa Monica doesn't have 13 high schools.
Right.
So that's the difference when people talk about Houston. It's massive. You mentioned the Grand Parkway. So the Grand Parkway is one of 3 loops.
Right.
We only have 3 loops in Houston, right? And the first loop was the little baby, then it grew, and now we've got this huge, massive Grand Parkway, which really helps you move around. But one of the things that's really interesting, we were just talking about this earlier today, that Drake, very famous, performer, bought a 313-acre property out past us in the Brenham, right?
Right out,
Washington
yeah,
County.
right out Washington County, right by Chapel Hill, kind of Brenham area. So about 30 minutes from us.
Yeah. And I don't remember how much he paid for it. I don't know if you remember, but I think it was like 16 million or something.
Yeah, it was a lot because it had a lot of development on it already from being a publicly operated business. So yeah,
You picture 313 acres.
Right.
That's most people, their homes are not even on a quarter of an acre, right? It's 313 acres. For 15 million in LA or New York, you would get, just a normal house.
A normal,
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So it kind of shows the magnitude of what your dollar,
The affordability comparison between. Yes, ma'am.
So tell me about the ranch that your family owns and these Longhorns. I know I've been super curious. I was very lucky. He took me out there and I got to see up close with these.
We got to feed some.
Oh my God.
See Will hide behind the tree.
Yeah, I wanted to hide behind the tree. Those things are massive.
They are.
So tell me a little bit about what it's like to raise these Longhorns and with these massive horns and how they get around and how difficult is that? And I mean, most people don't ever get to see one up close, right?
It's a fun pastime and job at the same time is the way that I describe it. It actually started with my grandfather back in the 80s, just decided to get into it as a hobby. Not a hobby for most normal people, but it's what he started and it's what's continued to run in our family. So we keep them docile. If there's anything crazy going on, we're not going to keep them around. We're not here to play Wild West and be the cowboy at the end of the day, but it's definitely given me a whole different perspective, almost living a kind of bipolar life of, like you said, spending the week here in the city and then being able to spend my weekends, out. We're only about an hour and a half out from here. So, I mean, like you were talking about with the whole Drake situation of, how close we have availability of large sections of land with still affordability that hasn't developed out yet. So really anything within, outside of an hour from all of our major cities, you can find good deals of land if you are, especially with the rising, everyone's trying to build compounds, things like that. But getting back onto, I guess, the Longhorn realm of things, it's just been a treat.
How big do they grow?
It kind of depends on each one. Steers are always going to be generally the quickest and largest growing for horns. There's three main ways that you measure. There's a total horn, which actually counts the curvature. You have tip to tip, and then you actually have their base, which is just the girth around where it actually goes to their head. That adds up to a composite score. If you go to like an auction or a show, it almost looks like you're gambling on Longhorns. There's so many analytics and numbers and spreadsheets of all these. So
wow.
It gets ridiculous. You can have we have some that total horn are about 120 inches, tip to tip, break 100. So definitely when you're around them, it's your spatial awareness needs to be a little heightened.
It's shocking.
If they turn their head, even if they don't mean to, you have 100+ inches swinging at you. So it's a fun game, but yeah, you got to stay on your toes for it. For sure.
I watched Peyton take a bag of feed out in the middle of 100. How many do you guys have out there? 100?
We're a little over 100 total head right now. The time that we were out in that pasture is roughly about 60 in the main herd there.
60 of them were like running at him because he had feed that he was giving them. And my heart was going, oh my God, Peyton's going to get run over. But nope, you were just fine, just feeding them. And
they'll swing their head and make sure you know that they're there. They'll definitely hit you from time to time, but I guess the way to phrase it is you got to think that they're all a bunch of little toddlers out there and they're just playing games. So they don't mean it in bad taste.
Something also interesting about you went to U of H. Mm-hmm. So you chose the University of Houston, which is in downtown Houston.
Yes, I am. Just south of downtown, right by the medical complex.
So tell me about that. That's a big university. They definitely on the national map in sports, they do really well. So what is that like? For people who don't know U of H and what it's like to go to a major university in Houston, what's that like?
It was definitely interesting. I'll say even things have changed a lot in the perspective of that location from whenever I've gone to school there, back starting in 2016 all the way until now. So to be completely honest, I didn't want to go to school. So I did not know where I was actually going until the day before classes had started.
Oh my gosh.
So it was a little bit of a, life spiral there moment going on. But truly, it ended up a huge blessing and big opportunity for me. It was cool to be able to actually live in Houston and get to experience kind of that different, major city living. Even, we talk about how Cypress is its own little bubble. And yes, while it's part of kind of the main metro area of Houston, it really does. I mean, even going back to the ranch, talking about the polarity of, being from Cypress and then going out to the ranch, almost the same feeling with going from Cypress to downtown Houston. So really, like you've said, they've grown a lot within academics. They've started a lot of medical programs. They're still large for their architecture, engineering, finance, #1 entrepreneur school in the past 5 years. So really, they've crossed off a lot of large accomplishments whenever it comes to academics, and even as you mentioned it, making it now into the Big 12. They've gotten a whole lot more national spotlight for their sports teams, football, and obviously basketball as well being their main focus. But the campus itself, constantly under construction, so kind of feels like the rest of Houston.
Like Houston.
So, like I said, they've made huge leaps and bounds from whenever I was there, and even just the entire area as a whole, the 3rd Ward, where it's actually located, gone through a lot of, we'll say, gentrification, being that, it used to be as soon as you leave campus, you feel like you're kind of in a different world. Now you'll see a lot brand new apartments. 4 apartment complexes went up right around campus while I was still there. They've built more subsequent ones since then. There's even townhouses now, the medical complex, and Herman Park is kind of expanding up into the 3rd Ward U of H area. So it's seen a lot of benefits over the past 10 years.
It's grown a lot. That it reminds me a lot of people, that may be listening from California. The University of USC is located pretty much the same as U of H.
Right, where you leave campus and it's...
You leave campus and you're downtown, and it's a whole different vibe than when you're, insulated in the university. But one of the other things that I'm constantly told is that Houston really doesn't have a lot of culture and music and little boutiques. And so you bring up a very good point, because in the Heights is considered one of the areas that a lot of people coming from big cities end up wanting to be in the Heights because it offers, and I know you're probably the most familiar with the Heights than any of us. Tell me a little bit about how you've seen that grow from the Heights, what the Heights was versus what it is today, and the kind of the coffee shops and all the little boutiques that you can find down there.
Right. So, I mean, going on your point, the Northwest area, which is the Heights, kind of Montrose area, even a little bit on the West, really has been kind of the cultural focus for, hey, this is where people want to be now, especially being the younger generation. It's a lot of, like you were saying, the boutiques, the coffee shops. That's kind of been
walkability, right?
And that's really, other than now expanding Edo, East Downtown is, before they get to the level of what they're planning for the next decade in Edo, Heights and Montrose is kind of the only area that you have to really focus, where you're not going to be in condos, apartments, things like that, and still keep that walkability. Truly, the change there. They've done a lot more new construction. We've dealt with listings out there where now people are buying those older homes from the 50s, tearing them down to do either multifamily or doing some, they tear down a single story from the 50s and they're building a 3-story, $2 million house. So really, like I said, it's the focus of, that's been the hot area for younger generation trying to get in and live, especially if they're working downtown. But also, I think we're going to continue seeing, like we talked about, the flip of those properties just getting more and more expensive, to where it might even become outside a normal reachable financial limit for most people. So we'll see, but truly,
we'll see how it goes. Yeah, we've just gotten such an influx of secondary migration coming into Houston, and everybody wants to be in the Heights because it's the most familiar to both coasts, I would say, right?
And I do think that it's still a safe influx of people, though, compared to like a lot of what we saw in other major cities during COVID. I'd say that Houston kind of protects itself, not in purpose, but that Houston, our housing market, at least, it expands because of supply rather than, like what we've seen in Austin, things like that, where they hit a boom and now they're really having to regress on their housing market. While things have slowed down a bit here, just the same on the national level, I don't think we've ever really been at a point in the past few years of where, hey, we're hitting demand that we cannot keep up with, that, is going to be putting us, people that have bought homes, in a negative equity situation because all of a sudden people are going to be moving out. Everyone, at least that has been moving to these areas that we've been talking about, have been staying, not for, just the hype, things like that, but also just the job market that we have to really keep the survivability up in Houston.
So that brings up a really good point. So thinking of 2026, and you are in the age group really of, where people are buying their first homes and, a young, starting your family, this whole thing. How do you see Houston for your demographic, for young people? Obviously I'm an old geezer and very different, stage in life. You are absolutely the demographic that's looking at Houston. What would you say to people your age that might be considering, Houston, and maybe what the perception of Houston versus the reality of Houston?
Right. I guess going off, at least for my age group, starting out being that, we just had statistics drop, I think it was actually last month, that the first-time home buyer market is at a record low for the past 50 years. So first-time home buyers are making up less than 20% of the market now. And now the median age for a first-time home buyer is 40, which is a little terrifying.
It's crazy,
it's a little scary. So we'll see how that goes. But at least for the younger demographic, I'll say that there is a lot of options. If you're buying, I'd still say that, the downtown area does get a little tough. It's a lot more competitive if we're talking even days on market. We go up. Cypress right now is sitting about 45 days. A lot of the hotter markets like the Heights, depending on kind of what you're looking for, still a little bit lower, right around 30. So a little bit more demand there. Of course, we talked about kind of the higher pricing being next to downtown. If we're talking about Houston just as a whole vicinity, I'd still say that Houston can grow faster. We're building faster than most major cities, which is a huge benefit for us. The only thing that I keep in mind is that you have hot spots of where those new development, starter homes are actually getting built. We are seeing some further outside of Cypress and Waller, areas like that. I'd say the entire outside northwest perimeter is doing really well on that. Magnolia, you've seen growing a lot of first-time home buyers there. So it's not outside of the feasibility for the younger age demographic. It really just comes down to location and also hopefully limiting consumer debt, because we have a huge problem with that. Even if it's not from the housing market, the vehicle market sitting there, and your average payment now is over $700 for a new vehicle. And that's not people doing on a 3 or 5 year loan. That's people going all the way up to 7-year notes. So I think we're putting Band-Aids on a lot of problems that aren't actually, solutions. Even talking about, we've had discussion before about the proposal of the 50-year mortgage.
Oh, yeah.
So I think we're putting a lot of Band-Aids on that. Just the entire consumer market as a whole, all of our financing, credit card debt, things like that. Really, I don't think that it's outside the feasibility of younger demographics to bump down that median age from 40. It's just we have a lot of habits to fix before we can start talking about the actual affordability of homes. So,
okay, so you have perspective on downtown living, suburbia, right? Because Cypress is definitely suburbia, and ranch life, right? So for Houston, when people think of Houston, there's people that think of people running around and on horses with hats and boots, right?
You can see it.
Which that's your weekend, right? That's what you're doing on the weekends. And then, a lot of people perceive Houston as, the energy corridor, and, it's petroleum, and it's, medical and all of that. As you see your life, where do you see your life? Is it ranch life? Is it suburbia? Is it downtown? What give me the pros and cons of all of that you've lived?
That's a tough question. If we're going pros and cons, I guess we can go one by one. I don't think I would do downtown again after doing that for school. I'll be honest. Traffic is just the bane of my existence, especially with the construction that they're planning on I-10, going from what is currently a 6-lane highway to going down at some sections to 2.
Yeah.
I'm going to avoid that at all costs.
Yep.
So other than that, I mean, downtown really did have its benefits.
Yeah.
It's not where I see myself fit.
Well, if you live and work downtown, then you don't
right.
have to
If
deal
you're
with
working,
the traffic.
if you're working
right.
downtown, 100%.
Right.
I mean, that makes sense for any job, just to be able to be in close proximity, cut the commute down.
Right.
Even if you do have to do that, I think that there's still a lot of benefits. Even you were talking earlier about, people were thinking, oh, Houston lacks culture, everything like that. Houston is the most diverse city in America. Even going back to U of H is still, I think for almost the past decade, has been the second most diverse school.
Really?
Second to UCLA, almost the past decade has been the second most diverse campus in America.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So, I mean, if you don't want to say that it has a fit defined culture, sure, I'll agree with that. To say that it lacks culture, I would definitely argue, because you have the most melting pot mix of culture possibly, to where I can go one block, hit the best taco truck ever, go over, hit sushi, go another block, hit some Indian food. I mean, if you want a little bit of everything without a hard focus, that's a really hard thing
Absolutely.
to beat within downtown Houston.
Yeah, the amount, the diversity of restaurants that we have access to, amazing
Right.
food from, and they're doing fusions of, Japanese with Indian, and you can get Russian food, you can get anything you want in Houston.
I have seen some weird combinations
Yeah.
that I've yet to try yet, but the idea, I'm all behind. Be able to get pizza with a little bit of Greek, whatever. Do as you wish.
Yeah,
but
it's wonderful.
It's a great blend, and it really, like I said, if you're working downtown and you can get that close commute, and really we're not Houston as a major city, even if you want to compare it to some of you're familiar with Los Angeles, it's still, even though we're complaining about traffic, it's a totally different beast.
Yeah.
So it really is, it's not as much of, a problem as it could be.
Yeah.
So once again, there's a lot of pros. I don't think it's a direct fit for what I'm looking at. To be honest, if you ask me if I have a super long-term plan, I'm going day by day. So
That's a great answer.
exactly. Going back to the other areas of it, suburbia, Cypress, everything like that, I think that would be the most consistent and just easiest place to stay within. I do think that a lot of the areas more north of us, going into Magnolia, kind of going back to, hey, you can still be in a almost suburban environment, but still have access to affordable land.
Yeah.
Even if we're talking on something generally on the basis of 5 acres or less, but still you're living on about 5 acres
4
now.
acres, yeah.
So 4 acres, and still you understand the large difference between something like, hey, a neighborhood lot where you're on a 1/4 acre, and even going up to a full acre is just night and day difference. So
and it's so different for people who have never lived on acreage, like the difference between living in a lot, right? That you can touch your neighbor. In LA, I could touch my neighbor's wall, exterior wall from the outside of my house.
Mm-hmm.
Our windows were literally this close.
Right.
And I'm on 4 acres now. People have horses, but I'm in the city. Like this is not. I'm not like you with your Longhorn, ranch, which is about an hour and a half from here.
Yes.
So, but you can have land in the city in Houston, which is really, really nice.
100%. And you still get all the benefits of being within a neighborhood.
Right.
You get the security, you get the community. You're not off on your own out in the middle of nowhere. You have all your access for shopping, but you do get that kind of space to feel like, okay, this is actually my land, rather than, hey, this is just the place I reside. So, and
you have privacy,
exactly.
But you have a community, you have grocery stores, you have a Buc-ee's. So we have an H-E-B and a Buc-ee's, which are Texas.
That's hard to beat.
It's hard to beat.
I travel to Oklahoma a lot now, and I will say leaving and not having an H-E-B is like night and day difference of my life.
Explain H-E-B to people that don't know it.
H-E-B is the best grocery store, gas, everything. It's hard to beat. Also, whenever you just don't feel like cooking and you walk in and there's an entire section up front of pre-made meals that, guess what? You don't have to tell anyone you didn't make them. Just throw them in the air fryer, throw them in the oven. It truly is. It's just a good atmosphere too. It really is. It makes grocery shopping suck just a little bit less. So going back to the pros and cons, I guess we went through downtown, a little bit of suburbia, and then going out to more rural land. Maybe retirement could be the game plan out there. truly it just, I guess, kind of depends on job factors.
Right.
You know, I'm not gonna move out to somewhere where I don't see a market that I would do well in.
Right.
So I think it'll definitely be something that'll always be a part of my life. That's the plan and that's the goal right now, in terms of actually like picking that as a full-time residence. Hopefully later down the road.
Yeah, when you're older.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just a balance of really availability and access to goods, obviously, just like living anywhere. So I think Houston has done well with, you know, of course, quoting the suburbia. I think Houston has done well with suburbia, being that, hey, we don't feel too in the city, too pressured. But then there is a lot of access for entertainment, restaurants, like we talked about, shopping, everything. Unless you're working downtown, there doesn't really seem to be a con with what Houston has developed on the outskirts.
So just to kind of wrap it up, if there are people your age that don't live in Houston, what do you think are the largest misconceptions that maybe might keep someone from looking at Houston that are not true?
I'd say usually it's people thinking that there's a lack of entertainment options. Of course, anytime that someone my age thinks of Texas, they already know Austin, especially if they're coming from out of state. That's been the main, you know, hot point for all of Texas for the past 5-6 years now. Truly, I'm not going to talk bad on Austin. I do love Austin. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, be careful. We got a Longhorn here.
It's really tough to hate on it. I do think, you know, Houston itself, while Austin gets the majority of the focus, Houston definitely still has its areas of entertainment. You don't necessarily have the scenery that Austin does. That trade-off comes with a large distinction in affordability.
Yep.
So really, if it's somewhere that you're looking for of, hey, I want good job market, especially at this age, it's, you know, you're going to have to make some sacrifices in life. It's not about, you know, maybe picking, hey, this is the most fun place to live, but hey, if we can live here and you know, save up, have a good job market, live a good life, there's really, other than truly landscape, there's no other trade-offs. And like I said, you trade that landscape for a huge benefit in affordability. But really, I think that's the biggest misconception, is people just thinking that Houston doesn't have the entertainment options. And really, I mean, if you go downtown, you can do whatever you want that you can at any other major city. So
yeah, we've got professional football, professional baseball.
I would say the sports are not lacking, which Austin, if you're a sports fan, I'm sorry, but I guess you can go on a hike. So
yeah, you can watch professional soccer maybe.
100%.
Yeah, we got the Texans, the Rockets, the Astros, great. And we've got the World Cup coming in.
Right.
So,
and that's also an interesting, I know we've talked about last time we were downtown of how much that they're actually rebuilding downtown to create more of the walkability that we were referring to with the Heights and Montrose and Edo. They're actually shutting down, I believe it's up to 5-6 blocks that they've actually completely torn up. They've opened 1 or 2 of them so far, but completely tearing up the road to actually do brick pathway, storefronts. So
for the World Cup.
Luckily for the World Cup, and that's going to be a permanent feature. But the World Cup coming is actually a huge bonus for us, obviously economically, but also just for, you know, living and just kind of the quality of life updates that we're going to get to make Houston a walkable city, because that has really been a huge downside of Houston and really any major cities. I mean, you were just in Spain, you know, the walkability here in our cities in America, we're not built for any of it.
Right.
And even if you compare it to, you know, more northern states, you've done a lot in New York, to where at least they set up a lot more public transit, things like that. Right. Here in Houston, I would say it's, if you don't own a car, you're basically not living.
Tough. Yeah. One of the things that you mentioned, which I think is really great, is a lot of these World Cups, you know, worldwide, for the history of World Cup, they build all this infrastructure when the World Cup comes in. And then after the World Cup leaves, these amazing stadiums and pavilions end up being empty and they become eyesores because they're not used. And I love that Houston has created something for the future, not just for
Right.
World Cup, but we're all going to benefit from it.
I would say they've
Yeah.
over $100 million
Super smart.
investment
Yeah.
for them to actually create walkable streets. So the World Cup coming and bringing over $100 million of actually, hey, we're putting tax dollars to where it's going to benefit the people. Well, yes, some people are going to complain that it's going to get a little busy down here. Obviously, you have people coming from all over the world that are going to be renting cars. Who knows what the roadways are going to be like? But at least, on the bright side of it, being an actual resident here, it is bringing us over $100 million investment that we're going to get to, continue to access and continue to enjoy well after the World Cup.
And we'll get to see Ronaldo.
100%. 100%.
Okay, Peyton. Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
It's great to hear from a Texas native and to see what your vision of Houston is, because I think it's a legit, over time of how it's grown, and I learned a lot. I didn't know that. I didn't know about U of H. That's a really great, important fact that I didn't know. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And thanks for being on 713 Live. And make sure you like and follow, and stay tuned for more.